So last week was one of the most historic moments for ETF inflows for Ethereum, sitting at $2.85 billion, which was massive, massive, massive. Because of course we are, over the week now, and we are going into the weekend. But yeah, guys, record numbers here. And how does this impact XRP? Time in, time out, I've been telling you guys, when you see the likes of Ethereum gaining this type of traction, you need to understand what kind of impact, a positive impact, this could have on the altcoin market, which of course has a positive impact on XRP included. But also, we have discussed in the past that, this makes us kind of realize what really happens when you see an XRP spot ETF. I also made some comparisons, before, pretty much. If you take a look at it before 2 months, Ethereum inflows were quite slow, but we have seen that change, that flip the switch moment happen for ETFs over the course of the last 2 months. Obviously, Treasury, Tom Lee, his company is building, the biggest treasury for Ethereum, and that is bringing in a lot of interest. But this makes me even more bullish as to what's going to happen when an XRP ETF is going to go live. And I'm going to discuss a little bit more on that as to what I think. But welcome back to the Crypto ZX channel. If you're looking across the board, we're still seeing, quite a bit of red across the board, except a few handful coins that are up. Speaking about a few handful coins that are up, XRP is one of them, up about 1% right now, with the price currently sitting at $3.14. Also up about 2% in Bitcoin. Comparative valuation at 187 billion, and the 24-hour trading volume is sitting at about $6.1 billion going into Saturday morning. But before we get into any further, as always, just a quick disclaimer: anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. So all XRP is doing is sitting on top of the all-time high range. Net inflows are currently flat in either direction, so one sideways fluctuations from here until some type of volume hits. And I could honestly say that, we're still looking really good for XRP, and I totally agree. We're sitting at that range, but the price of XRP is still looking better than a lot of people are anticipating. But we'll pull out the charts and kind of discuss that. But take a look at what SEC Paul Atkins has to say. So the main reason for doing all this and addressing these various regulations is to provide some certainty for people. Yes, we needed this, and I'm sure, if you've been in this space for quite some time, and the government under the previous administration, and on top of that, SEC chairman Gary Gensler, previous one, there was no clarity towards crypto, and there were no guidelines. It's just making rules out of thin air. Hence there was so much frustration built up, and hence there were so many of these big entities, big corporations that wanted to probably build in the US that offshored, because of course there was not support for crypto clarity. But this is where we're seeing that flip the switch event taking place. And I think this opens the doors for more development, more interest to come in, not just from retail side, but also from institutional and development side. So the clarity aspect is that, and it gives other financial entities the green light to actually start offering these services, or kind of going into the stablecoin market. And of course they're not going to do that unless there is a really set in stone, clear indication as to what implications are there, what's right, what's wrong. And that is what's happening right now. This was never there in the past for crypto, and now we're seeing it happen, and this is where excitement really comes into play. And kind of going back to my main point about what happens when XRP ETFs go live. Right now you're seeing major inflows coming in, treasury companies, obviously, Ethereum, like the one that I gave you guys, Bitmine, who's trying to be the biggest Ethereum treasury company. But the reason why I bring this up is because let's now kind of speculate upon what could potentially happen. Could we see a big name company come and become the biggest XRP strategic reserve, and kind of emphasize on that specific use case and that specific category. I don't see why not. It just makes sense. And what if I told you we're already starting to see hints of that? What I mean by that is, if you've seen in the past few videos, I've indicated that there's actually some publicly traded companies that are actually raising funds to create a XRP strategic reserve, and this is before an XRP spot ETF that goes live. So these puzzle pieces, guys, they're starting to connect for me, and I don't want you guys to be overlooking it. But of course, let me know in the comments down below your personal thoughts on that. But take a look at this. Yes, banks will be able to connect their core systems to the Ripple network just as they connect to Swift. Speaking about that, look at what X Financial says. So we're still, settling trillions on the old tech, the 1970s tech. Let that sink in. And that's true, very, very true. This is where the ISO 222 comes into play, and we see that switch really taking place. But cross-border payments are slow, murky, and broken. Ripple is building rails with XRP and stable coins that actually work. I've seen it coming for years. Swift won't survive this cycle. And even Swift CEO has come out and positively spoken about XRP, and they are aware as to what's happening. And even Ethereum CEO has come out and said that Swift is not even ISO compliant. Let that sink in. Let that sink in, guys. And on top of that, the XRP community, just take a look at this, SEC government and Ripple XRP, lawsuit that we know. So the SEC government has filed a report with the Court of Appeals noting that the parties have filed a joint stipulation of dismissal of the appeals, and the stipulation remains pending and therefore awaiting approval by the court. And I know people are getting frustrated at this. Let's put this to the end once and for all. And right now, it's still waiting for the judge. Yes, of course, both parties have decided, let's drop the appeal. We want to end this long 5-year, case that has been going on. It seems like forever. But it's still being processed, and I think we're still waiting for an approval. Once that approval comes into play, I think that's where it's just over us for good. You still need to see the judge come and approve this, even though it is over, like in terms of appeal. They don't want to go through the whole process anymore. It's just set in stone. It is done, but the judge needs to come and actually put this to an end by, of course, approving this. So a very, very interesting thing. We'll obviously keep you guys covered as to what happens with that. And shout out to Smoke. Yes, XRP has already been successfully tested under South Africa's exchange controlled regulation 1961, administered by the South African Reserve Bank's Financial Surveillance Department for cross-border crypto asset payment. Big stuff, of course. But now let's take a look at what's happening with the price. If you're looking at the dominance here, 59.61%. Of course, we did see this uptick up to 60%, got rejected at that range. Since then, we are pulling down. We did see Bitcoin see a retracement as well. Let's give it a refresh live to see where Bitcoin's currently sitting at 117,400 going into the weekend. And we did see that retracement from last night at 119,000, and this is, of course, something we kind of want to keep in mind. But if you're looking at XRP right now, XRP is actually looking to, make its way back towards the upside. Do insider know something that we don't? Because you could see this for yourself. XRP is actually holding quite strongly. We retested the $3 price point several different times. As you guys know on my channel, this is the level that we've spoken about so many times. To actually give you guys a little bit of a better visual, let me extend this, drawing right here. And you can see this for yourself. Retested $3 two different times, once on 14th of August and yesterday as well. And you can see, we have picked up. So time in, time out, if you had some buy orders placed in around that $3 price point, you're looking at an increase of about 5% for the third largest coin, which is quite an impressive move, to be quite frank with you. And you can see we do have some resistance coming in our way around the $3.14. If this is able to break out, I wouldn't even be surprised if the price of XRP starts pushing back up to the $3.32 range quite fast. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here so far. So good for XRP. We'll keep you guys covered. If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Don't be shy. Let me know in the comments. And of course, follow me on X. That's a big one. And if you watch this video till the end, guys, comment below ZX. And that will show me that you guys watched this till the end. Love you all. See you later. Been Crypto ZX, and peace out.